My name is Tyrell Shaw. This is Miss Carolyn Caldwell. Today is Tuesday, January 18th, 2011, and the time is 11:03. Miss Caldwell?
Yes.
Where were you born?
I was born in Mobile, Alabama
What was,
in 1943.
what was Alabama like?
Well, I was just a little kid then. We stayed there until I was about 7 years old, and then we moved north to Cincinnati. And from Cincinnati, we moved to Mansfield, Ohio.
But do you have any siblings?
Yes, there's 9 of us.
No.
Yeah, 6 girls and 3 boys.
Was it hard growing up with you guys?
No, it wasn't hard. We just did what we had to do. What we had to do. It wasn't hard at all.
What was
Go ahead.
what was it like moving from Alabama all the way to Cincinnati and to Mansfield?
It was very hard because when we came to Mansfield, we came on the Greyhound bus.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and 6 children, and the youngest was about 6 months. So we traveled all the way by Greyhound to Cincinnati.
Do you remember what year that was?
This has been close to 1950, because I was about 7 years old.
What side of town did you stay on? Mansfield?
You know, just thinking about that last night, because even though we moved from Alabama to Cincinnati to Mansfield, Ohio, I've never lived in any place past 5th Street.
No?
It's all been on the north end where my family lived, where I live now. It's all been on the north side.
And what was the north side like in the 50s, 40s?
In the 50s. When I was 7 years old, you know when you're 7, you really don't, you're not into politics, you're just a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was okay. It was okay considering, because that's where my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, we came with about 7 or 8 of our family people, different families. And we all, when we first got to Mansfield, we all lived in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're way too young to remember, but that was right at 161 6th Street, right down here.
Mm-hmm.
And there was I guess you would call it an apartment building, but it was just thrown together, you know, place. But all of our family stayed in different apartments in that place.
What was the street? Was there street limits where you guys couldn't go, certain times?
Well, like I said, when we came, we were just younger. We didn't know. All I can tell you about is growing up, and there was a lot of people that kind of helped us because we lived really in a very bad place. And the Volunteers of America had a little storefront on Main Street, and every Friday night they would have Bible study, and there was one Mr. Smith, and we called her Annie Ossie. She would read stories to us, you know, and she'd pause at a certain time so it would continue next week. But they were the ones that kind of helped us because they made it possible for us to go to camp. They took us to the camp. They gave us money to spend because we wouldn't have had none of that. It was a big help to our family.
That's good. Do you remember what church you guys went to?
Me?
Yeah, if you went to
Yeah, we
church.
went to Mount Calvary, which was right down the street.
Yeah.
And Mount Calvary was on the hill then.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't laid out like it is now. It was up on the hill. That's where, at 11 years old, I was baptized, you know. And we were all involved in things like the guild, which was for younger people when we got to be about 11, 12, 13. And they were, you know, teachers, put us in a choir, and, you know, teach us different things concerning church.
So since then, you've been in Mansfield your whole life?
Yes, I have.
Remember what your first job was?
Yeah, just, you know, My first job was at Mansfield General Hospital, and I was 20, I think, 20 years old when I started there, and we were making like $1.35 an hour. And you know, to training and stuff, you had to go full time. But after full time, I only worked like 16 hours a week, which was considered as permanent part-time. And that's what I worked there. And I worked there for almost 20 years.
Like, did you, like, empty bedpans, or was it like a certain thing?
We did everything.
Everything.
Yeah, we did, because then the nursing wasn't like it is now. You know, we did the scrub work. We did the bedpans, and we did the cleaning, making the beds and different things like that, until we got to be nurses' assistants. And then it was a little easier, but it was still, we did the grunt work.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back. What were your parents? What were they like growing up? Like when you grew up?
Well, when I was growing up, there was a lot of confusion in our household. Because first of all, my daddy was in the Second World War. So my mother was left with all of us children to raise us as best she could. You know, and so just like any other thing, when he came back from the war, you know, you're kind of used to living your own lifestyle, you know, and it was kind of hard for them to return to the normal, per se, of things. So there was a lot of disruption in our household. And that's why my mother left with 6 kids coming to Ohio. But it didn't remain that way, because my daddy came too later, and he was here the rest of the time in Mansfield. But it was still disruptive.
As a African American, like in general, when you got older, in your 20s, what was life like living in Mansfield?
When I was in my 20s, it was still hard, because in my 20s, I got married when I was 17. I had 4 children in 4 years. So I wasn't really into political stuff still then. I had to raise the kids. So that's what I did in my 20s, you know.
Okay. You were a very busy woman.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of jobs did your parents have? Well, your mother.
My mother was a domestic. She worked out of the home, raising other people's kids, like it just was in the South. She did the same thing when she got here. When my father came to Mansfield, he was lucky enough to get hired on the railroad. I don't know which one it was, but the one that came through Mansfield. So he was still going a lot. You know, he'd go and he'd come home on the weekends, you know.
So, did you see your father a lot?
Yeah, we saw him, but, you know, he was in the home per se. He just wasn't there like 7 days a week. He was on the road, and then he was home. You know, I would like to say that everything was nice and smooth, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was really, really hard. And hard as it was back then, you know, we didn't really know that we were poor. You know, we didn't have some things, but we didn't know we were poor. And I remember one of the first places we moved down Madison Avenue. You know where the steel mill is today? Well, before they built the steel mill, we lived on one of the streets that went through that. And, you know, as kids, we were kind of happy. We didn't know. We had any kind of fruit tree you had, apples, pears, plums, grapes. So we were never, hungry, because, you know, that was there. And that was a help.
Where'd you go to school when you moved here?
I went to school at Bushnell. You never heard of that one, have you?
No, ma'am.
That's over there on 4th Street where New Hope is now, Bushnell.
Okay.
That's the first school I went to, and I went there from the 2nd grade, maybe about a year. And then they tore Bushnell down, and we went to West Fifth. You know where the adult thing is on 5th Street now?
5th Street.
Between Bowman and, I don't know, Bowman and Mulberry. It's an adult education place now. Then we went there. When we left there, when we moved farther, you know, on the north end, we went to Creveling. You know, and then Creveling was, it wasn't segregated when I was there. Now, my husband is 5 years older than me. When he went to Creveling, it was segregated. They had to come in the back in the old park, you know, but I didn't have to do that. When I went to school like 5 years later, it was okay, you know. But it was different.
Was it still kind of difficult being, segregated?
Well, you could tell everybody when it's segregated, because I don't know. You know, because he did, my husband. When he went, it was segregated. And he just says that that's the way it was and which way they had to go in and, you know, before the changeover.
I can never imagine something like that.
Like that. But, like I said, he went to Creveling, I went to Creveling, my kids went to Creveling, and starting on the grandkids went to Creveling. You know, before they got the middle school and you know, 4th Street and Malabar and stuff. But we all went that school, and it's all really contained. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
That's where we went. It wasn't things like now where they bus you all over. It wasn't like we went where we could walk, because they didn't have busing and stuff then. We just went to school. It was normal to us, you know.
Mm.
But when we did go to junior high school, and they would start to give us bus passes. I don't know what you guys do now. You probably drive, right? But when we were going on, we had to ride the bus, and we, of course, being poor, they gave us bus passes, you know. But the bus would always go past us on our Bowman Street to the white part first. And then they come back, and of course, you know, when they got to us, we had to sit on the back. But you know, the back part of the bus was pretty good. That's where the heat was at the winter time. So that wasn't bad either. That worked out pretty good, but that's just the way it was.
Were there ever, any problems on the way to school? Like in the bus?
No, it wasn't any problem with the bus. But like I said, I'm kind of hard-headed.
Mm.
When I got to senior high, like in the 9th or 10th grade, you know, some of the teachers had the tendency that, I'm being truthful, the white kids would come in and they would choose their seats. And just so happened in one of the classes, I chose the seat up in the front. And on one day, one of the white kids came in and she made me move so he could have that seat. So when the class was over, I'm not afraid to step up when you write. I told the teacher, I said, I'm not moving anymore. I'm not moving anymore, because if I'm here first, then I deserve to sit here. You know, and I've always sort of stood up for myself, you know, not being, I didn't really care if she took me to the office. It wasn't a big thing, you know, but sometimes, you know, you have to stand up when you see things like that being done to you, you know.
Did that happen often in school?
No, it didn't have to happen often, because they're good teachers too, you know, and they try to help you as best they can, but you'll run into that. I don't care whether it's today or back then, you know, it's still around.
Yeah. Like, family-wise, were you guys family, friends? Were you guys all close, like the neighborhood? Was everyone close?
Everybody wasn't close, but when you're young, you form your own friendships. And we had little things like, we had a little club where we meet at each other's house. I guess we was about 15 then. You know, we serve a little treat and stuff and have a little time. That's what we did, you know. And we had a little singing group. You kind of make where you are better or nicer, you know, like I was saying before about the block grants, when that stuff started coming in. Now, I'm quite sure block grant was around years before it got to us. But when the block grant came in, you know, the purpose of the block grant was to help blighted areas and poor, underpaid people. And, you know, when it came to my part, I just figured that it would be better to try to get something done if you get a lot of people to work together. So that's why I went on Orchard Street. That was the first street that was done as a neighborhood, you know. And I went from door to door, getting signatures of the people, all the people on Orchard Street, to present to city council. You know, being young, I know what I was doing, but that's what I did, and it worked out. We happened to get a large portion of the block grant money to get Orchard Street done. And Orchard Street looked pretty good. It looked way better than it do now. Because back then when I did that, almost all the people on Orchard Street were elderly. I mean, I was just maybe 35, but they were all elderly all around me. And you could see, you know, how their houses were falling apart, and you know they needed help, but couldn't get the help they needed. So I thought that kind of helped, And most of the people that lived there then, most of them are dead. And Orchard Street is only like a block long. And right now, I can name you 5 or 6 empty houses, boarded up, right in that little area where I live now. So Orchard Street don't look nothing like it did when they came through with the block grant and fixed it up.
Can I jump in there with a quick question? So what you're saying is, even when you lived there before, it had gone through periods of decline?
Yes.
So it had already sort of deteriorated, they fixed
Right.
it up, and it's deteriorated again?
Right.
Am I hearing that
Because they
correctly?
were all older, elderly people that lived there when I was younger. And they all died, but their houses or their people, their kids or whoever didn't step in and maintain it. So it's going pretty much back or worse than what it was.
So you think, your perspective is it's much worse now than it's ever been?
I think so. Because at least when the people were living in the houses, they cut the grass and they did the best they could to maintain their homes as best they could. But now the house is just sitting there empty, so you know grass gonna grow up every summer, and snow gonna be there every winter. And in our neighborhood, we living right by the granary. We had mouse problems, groundhog problems, wild turkey problems, deer problems, because all of them were coming to the grain and stuff, you know. So we had those problems to go along, and all these old houses, which were, the basements are not secured and stuff, that's where the groundhog goes, not just as a groundhog house
So
now.
do you remember when they built the granary? Is that before your time, or is that?
No, I don't remember, like this, when we moved there in 1960, the granary was already there. But shortly after we moved there, you know, the granary burnt down.
Okay.
Maybe you don't know, the granary burnt down. This, what we have now, is all new. And it's much worse than it was with the old granary, because they made the extensions, you know what I'm saying? It's taking over the neighborhoods. All those people on the other side of Lily Street, where there were houses and neighborhoods, the granary bought most of that, and the houses across the street, they're already older, falling down, and of course you're not gonna get any loans or no help, no kind of way to fix those up. So I wouldn't, it made it better for the granary, but it didn't make it better for us.
Interesting. So to follow the same line of questioning, can you tell us about any of the stores and restaurants, like any change in the business community in the North End? I mean, how has it changed?
You mean in our area?
In the North End, yeah.
In the North End, because I've lived, like I said, from Madison Avenue to Bowman Street to Crystal Spring. You know where those streets are? Okay. All that's way out. There used to be, I think, 3 grocery stores. There used to be some, not hotels, well, rooming houses, you know. And, you know, of course, between Crystal Spring and, I'll say, Fern Avenue, I know there are about at least 6 bars. You know, we lived over one of the bars on Bowman Street, you know, so it was, I mean, you know, we lived there.
Yeah.
We just did the best we could living there, you know.
So that there used to be more like, so you mentioned the 3 grocery stores, but there were
Right.
more sort of little neighborhood stores and things real local that you could just walk up and
Right,
get the
right,
things that you need.
right, and from, I think the grocery store started about, Crestline Avenue, that's where the steel mill started. Crestline Avenue had one, there was what we call a big grocery store on the corner of Bowman and Longview. On past there was one called Marshall's. And up by Creveling School or MOIC, there was a big drugstore and grocery store right there in that corner.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, that would be like Bowman and Spring Mill? Is that the one you're talking about? The guy?
Bowman and Harker.
Oh, really?
Bowman
Where
and
the
Harker,
big
right
lot
across
is
from
now?
right across from where we were.
Yeah.
You know, up there. Yeah,
Where
right
the
across
lot
from
is
there.
now, where that church owns
Right.
that lot? Okay.
Right,
okay.
that used to be a store. And on down there, it was, in the building where the, you been out?
Yeah,
It used to be a drugstore and toy store, like a five and dime
that's
store.
what I was thinking of.
Yeah, they had that too.
Okay. Fantastic.
We didn't have any banks in that area. The banks came later. The one that used to be on the corner of Bowman and
Yeah.
Spring Mill,
Mhm.
that came later,
Okay.
much later. And then it didn't last, last that long.
Okay.
But
Sorry,
we
Tyrell.
had some pretty decent, things in the area.
Okay.
And now you go out there, all you see is, the barbecue place right on corner of Longview.
Nope.
Yeah, Melton's. That's there. And you don't see much else. That way, I don't remember anything else. The churches is up on Charles Street, but there's nothing really else that used to be there.
Is there any way you could talk to us more about that? Do you remember when, it started to transition from businesses leaving, stuff like that? Do you remember when the change started to happen?
I think really, I'm not really sure, but I think a lot of the change started when the steel mill took over. Because like I say, the steel mill didn't even start until about Grandview. You know where that is? Grandview, and we lived right here. And then when they took over Madison Avenue, they went all the way up, I think, to Crestline. And I think a lot of the business kind of kicked off. The bars are doing good, but I don't think the stores and other things were doing that good.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and cover that question and finish with that? Then we'll wrap it up.
Honestly, how did the whole racial bias thing affect you?
Let's see. Like I said, I was still young when a lot of this stuff began to affect me or came to my thought, because like I said, I was trying to raise my family and stuff. I just know there was certain things we could do and certain things we couldn't do. From what my husband can tell you a lot, but he didn't come. But anyway, he used to work at the bowling alley up on 4th Street. You don't remember that either, probably. But they had a lot of lanes up there. He used to work. Him and some of his buddies, school buddies, used to go up there and set pins. They didn't have the automatic pins like they have now. And they used to go and set pins, and sometimes they wouldn't get out maybe till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And this was after they had been to school.
Mm-hmm.
Then they went up there, and they have to walk home. The bowling alley on 4th Street, he lived way out on Lily Street, where we live now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they had to walk down this hill. And I'm not sure whether this was a two-way street or not, I can't remember. But anyway, the police would follow them from the time they left the bowling alley to the time they got home, to make sure they just went home, and didn't go in the other part. But they used to do that. They used to follow them like that. And they were just little kids. You couldn't have been more than 14 or 15. But they would do. And like I say, there were some nice people in there, because the guy who worked at bowling alley, my husband was poor too. So they had a little store right across the street here where they used to sell jeans and shirts and stuff like that. The man from the bowling alley would take him and had a little tab. It would buy him stuff like jeans and shirts and stuff. They didn't cost like $2.50, but they would buy stuff for him so he could have stuff to wear the school didn't come to work for them. So there was some good people who kind of looked out for them. They know there wasn't anybody but kids, you know what I'm saying?
I guess that would go into the whole civil rights movement too. Was there like anything here, like a rally, like meetings? Do you remember?
Yeah, there was a lot of things. I don't think I participated in in them because they have marches and they have the NACP. They had all that stuff, and I was hoping you wouldn't get into Martin Luther King. But anyway, they had those there. I never participated in because I really didn't see what good it would do to march from my house to the courthouse and stand in front of the courthouse and nothing was gonna change. Nothing did change when they marched. I mean, during my time when I was coming up. So I would never march. I know even now, not too long ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they were talking about doing another march. I wouldn't participate in that either, but it was called off for some reason. I don't know why.
So did it, like any of those things affect Mansfield? Do you think?
Some people think it did. Some people think it did. They, you know, like they have the, Betty Martin was the president of NACP? Betty Palmer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, her group, they had got the statue up on the square.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks it did a good thing. It's a good thing, I guess, to have a black man on the square. But I got letters I wrote, I was opposed because it don't look like Martin Luther King. It looks nothing like Martin Luther King. But I said it looked better than the first draft. I happened to see the first draft that this man did. And they had Martin Luther King like this. And he didn't have no uptown. He's got a shirt and a tie.
Mm-hmm.
He just had hands and a white shirt. And his head to me looked like a salamander, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, no. But you know, people sometimes seem to think that because they put a little money into something, it's got to be acceptable. I don't have to accept anything that I don't want to accept. You know, if it's a good thing for you, it's a good thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I don't have to accept everything that comes down the trail. It's up there, and they're talking now about, you know, trying to get people to go up and you know, maintain it and stuff. Hey, that's good. That's all good. And the little rocks or bricks or whatever they had, that's all good. But the thing about it, it really doesn't represent a lot of people on the North End.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say is, those rocks cost $250, $500 per rock. Now, could you afford that? Could your granny, would she afford that? I couldn't. So that's the way that is, you know.
Do you still go to church now?
I used to go to the Church of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little church over on, right over here. Right over here on Gray Street.
Oh yeah, I know
Yeah.
something.
I used to go there, but I haven't been there in over a year.
Can you tell us a little bit about the role of the church in sort of the North End community, personally, or just in the community at large?
Well, I know what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I know what it's supposed to be, and we have a lot of churches.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever study a lot of the churches, except for the big ones, like Mount Calvary, Shiloh, St. John's, there's another big one. But anyway, those all have big followings, which is good. That's what people do, that's what they do, you know. But just like I said, sometimes it get to be that it's more about business than it is about anything, and that's, I don't like that. But I'm not speaking against any church. I don't want nobody to strike me down. But that's me, you know. And I'm quite sure we all have our own opinions
Absolutely.
about church attending and all that kind of stuff, so. Because I know that's one of the first questions a person asks, what church you go to? You know, and that's okay, I guess, but it's not really about which church you go to. It's about what you believe. You know, and that's just the way I feel about that.
So we pretty much hit on most of the sort of questions that we had. Is there anything that you would like to add to sort of help frame people's understanding of the history of the North End, or African Americans in the Mansfield community, or anything you'd like to add? And that will pretty much wrap it up with that.
Well, there's not a whole bunch that I would like to add, because I think we pretty much covered what the North End is about and our role. I just wish that a lot of people that are in politics and have those kind of roles, you know, like they hit on the block grant, get back to the basics of what it's supposed to be about. You know, we've taken block grant and we helped the buses out. We took, you know, trying to get Med Central, trying to get the nursing school built, Renaissance trying to get a elevator. Those things are important, but they're not as important as dealing directly with the people that have a need. I think that's more important than any of these other things. And a lot of people would disagree, but the buses are good. Not many of us go to Renaissance. Not many of us going to Med Central Nursing School. You know, all that's good, but we want to be involved in some of the stuff that's going to help us. You know, they put a lot of money into the neighborhoods, but we need something that is going to work on the whole neighborhood. Fixing a house here and a house there is not going to help the community at all. I said myself, if they would take some of the block grant money and tear down these old houses, we could see what we have to work with. Right now, we're not showing any progress. You know, just one person is happy because they got a new house, you know, but the rest of them are not, you know. So that's my opinion.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that's pretty much all we have. We want to thank you very much for taking part in this little experiment.
Okay, I appreciate it. And make sure you edit.
Oh, it'll be edited in. We'll frame it
Okay.
real nice, and we'll make sure you get a look at it before we present it or
Okay.
anything like that.
All
So,
right. Well, it's enjoyable talking to you. You ain't asking no real hard questions, so, you know. I mean, you know, some of the questions might have been kind of hard and emotional, like,
Yeah.
because, you know, if you've never been there, you don't understand.
I
But
know. I
agree.
know. Trust me.
Okay.
Great. All right, guys, we're gonna cut this
Thank you
off.
very much. We do appreciate it.
All righty.
Very much so.
Thank you.
All right.